Hello, everybody. As I just mentioned to Dr. Roush, there are a lot of depressed people in town. Hopefully, she'll get us over the hump. So, howdy. So I was reminded that today is Tucson's 250th birthday. Do we want to sing happy birthday to our town? All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tucson. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Okay. This coming Wednesday, after the normal discussion group, we're going to have a gentleman or a woman, I don't know for sure, from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And they'll be speaking about everyone's rights and responsibilities at a peaceful protest. We've had, as you know, every other Saturday we organize a rally on La Cañada and Esperanza. We've had a couple of incidents. Fortunately, they didn't get totally out of hand. But there's more and more anger. So I think if you can, come and join us. Might be standing room only again, but that'll be Wednesday at noon in this room. The other thing I wanted to point out was don't miss the September 13th meeting. We're doing that jointly with the Quail Creek Democrat Club. It'll be held at Quail Creek in the Ocotillo room. We've got 3 young college students going to tell us about what they're looking for in the Democratic Party. In fact, the title is Preparing for the Gen Z Takeover. I think it should be great fun, so be sure you come to that one. The men in our group here have been a little jealous. The women have had for over 2 years now, I think, women in blue lunches. So the guys felt a little left out. They've organized their own, and they call themselves Guys in Blue. Have you got a sign-up sheet in the back?
There's a sign-up sheet in the back.
Okay, your first one is going to be this next...
September the 18th, noon, at the Arizona Family Restaurant.
Okay, September 18th at the Arizona Family Restaurant at noon. And the last thing I want to point out is a fun event that the fundraising committee has put together, Oktoberfest. And that will be October 19th. It's going to be at CPAC. We'll have the usual beer, brats, sauerkraut, and polka music. So how many people know how to polka? Oh, good. We need help. Please show up. Years ago, I used to do the polka a lot, and the schottisch. How many remember the schottisch? All right, cool. We'll try to do them both. So be sure you put that on your calendar. That's scheduled at 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, October 19th at CPAC. We've extended the rally cry deadline. How many know about the rally cry, what we're talking about? Okay, few. So we've got a competition between the Democrat Club of Quail Creek and ourselves to see who can come up with the best rally cry for the election year. The DNC, I haven't seen it officially, but I think they were suggesting forward together. And I've said this many times. It just doesn't have the urgency of what we've got ahead of us. So come up with something a little more exciting. We'll make banners out of it, bulletins here, there, and everywhere using the best. We had scheduled a postcard party for this next Friday, but the group that showed up yesterday finished all 500 cards. Thank you. We know we need 2 seats for sure. Several of those that are finishing their first 2-year term are willing to stay on and do another 2 years. But we know we need 2 seats. We're losing our dear friend Henny. Well, she's still going to be around, but Henny has been our publicity VP for years and does a wonderful job. She's the one that sends out all your newsletters, all your updates, and she I shouldn't probably tell anybody that might be interested. It's not a full-time job. It's maybe about 30 hours a week. With no benefits. So we're looking for 2 people. The other is Arlen Oslin. She has been our outreach VP. Again, a very talented lady. She will be greatly missed as well. So those are the 2 positions we're looking for. So it's kind of hard to find anything to smile about or chuckle these days. Certainly yesterday morning was one of the worst in a long time. I think he does it just to divert our attention from really what ugly person he is and what the Epstein files might show. But regardless, I decided, well, I'll look up some political jokes. Maybe we can get a laugh or 2. Booing is acceptable. In fact, I expect it. So, first one. How many congressmen does it take to change a light bulb? 2. 1 to change the bulb and 1 to change it back again. What's the difference between death and taxes? Congress doesn't meet every year to make death worse. There were 2 guys talking with each other, and one said, 2 years ago, my brother ran for Congress. And a friend says, well, what's he do now? Nothing, he won. How are politicians like diapers? How are politicians like diapers? They both need to be changed regularly and for the same reason. Why isn't the government displaying a nativity scene this Christmas? They can't find 3 wise men. And the last one. A politician is a person who will lay down your life for their country. Well, good. We got a few chuckles. So, onward. Somewhere here is the introduction to our speaker.
You want to make the Randy Rainbow?
Oh, sorry. Oh, there was something else you wanted me to mention.
Just those.
Just that. Oh, yeah. Okay, so in the back, for LD19 fundraiser, they are raffling tickets for a Randy Rainbow event. Does everybody know Randy Rainbow? You gotta check him out. Go to YouTube or whatever, wherever you find your information. Anyhow, he is just a very, very talented man, stand-up comedian. So he is performing at which one of the
At the Fox Theater.
At the Fox Theater on October 11th. And you can buy a raffle up until the 4th, and then on the winner will be announced, and October 11th. It also includes a night.
It's night at the Hilton Doubletree downtown.
At
So
the
you go to
Doubletree.
the concert, really turn wild, and then stay at a hotel.
Right. Yeah. Or you can get wild afterwards. Anyhow, cool. So those raffle tickets are in the back. How much are they?
They're $10 each, 6 for $50, 12 for $100. So I'll take checks and cash. My credit card machine's not working.
Oh, okay, cool. It's not, ours is. Okay, fine. Okay, now to introduce our speaker for today. She has told me that she is a recovering Catholic, a Girl Scout, a snack shack server at Six Flags over Mid-America, a tennis racket stringer. Has anybody got a tennis racket? Tom and I brought our tennis rackets with us when we moved here, but we never did play. I used it, though, to dust out some carpets. It worked pretty well. She also was a field hockey center, a Marriott Hotel lifeguard, a young life camp work crew member. Those are long titles. Yeah. Residence hall director. Oh, I bet she was tough. Scuba diver, a dolphin photographer, blogger, wood turner. Did you join the woodworking club? Yeah, really, that's wonderful. Private practice psychologist and a community college instructor who plays pickleball. Chris Roush retired 23 years of teaching psychology at Central New Mexico Community College in 2018 when she and her partner moved to Green Valley. She would love to be an occasional guest speaker at a local high school. She misses teaching so much that she texted a friend of a friend of a friend who is a teacher at Walden Grove. And this is what she said. Please help me get in front of a classroom again because I can't keep teaching snippets of psychology to unsuspecting strangers I meet on the street. It's getting out of hand. Last week, I launched into an enthusiastic lecture on the psychology of sales and customer service. Now I've been banned from the Lazy Boy showroom in Tucson. Dr. Roush, give us some hope. Let's do this. Can you do that? Good. Now do this. And this. This concludes my talk. Questions? Hey, listen, I'm not used to microphones, so please yell at me if I do this and you can't hear me. Okay, I'm thrilled about the turnout today. I'm sure it's not me. I think it's the wine. You know, the Green Valley Democrats actually hold a soft place in my heart. Long before I moved here, I visited my folks beginning in 2000. And in 2009, I came by myself. It was Christmas time. My dad was here, my mom was here, all the rest of the kids were scattered around the country. And my mom was having surgery. And do you remember it was Christmas Eve when the Senate took the vote on Obamacare? Yeah. I remember watching that from her hotel room. At that time, my partner and I agreed we would never move to Green Valley because there are only Republicans here. All of those Republican bumper stickers, and I just felt so alone and scared and, stressed. And I went to the Continental Safeway and saw the sign for the Democrats. And I thought, oh. And so I just I opened the door, and this nice elderly lady stood up, said, "Can I help you?" And I threw myself into her arms. And I said, "I need a hug." And she was so kind. And that has stayed with me to today, how much I appreciated her being there. And then I left. So if you were that lady, thank you very much. You know, I grew up in a home, a Catholic home, 6 kids. My folks never talked about politics at all. I couldn't know the difference between a Democrat or a Republican. Maybe it was covered one day in my 7th grade history class. I remember being in graduate school at New Mexico State, and I was calling my mom, and I was just chatting about what was going on. And I said, "Oh, I met this really cute guy. He's tall, he's blonde, he's so nice, he's athletic. He is about 5 years younger than me, which is, okay, I'm working on my graduate program. He's getting his bachelor's. But Mom, I don't know if I can get over this. He's a Republican." And my mother said, "You mean I have a daughter who's a Democrat?" So that's when I found out. When she found out. So you're watching the news these days, right? I know, as little as possible. You're reading it, you're learning about the latest atrocity, depending on the day. You're feeling outraged, depressed, scared, hopeless, ashamed, grief, exhausted,
helpless, overwhelmed with it all, right? In a word, stressed. I love this quote. And I can't help but think of Democrats here. Compassion asks us to go where it hurts, to enter into the places of pain, to share in brokenness, fear, confusion, and anguish. Compassion challenges us to cry out with those in misery, to mourn with those who are lonely, to weep with those in tears. Compassion requires us to be weak with the weak, vulnerable with the vulnerable, and powerless with the powerless. Compassion means full immersion in the condition of being human. Anybody relate to that?
Yes.
And perhaps that might help explain why you feel so exhausted. Because you care. And in my spiritual tradition, developing compassion is probably the most important task we have in this lifetime. And you all are there already. So appreciate that. And I'm sure you've seen this quote, "When I give food to the poor, they call me a saint. When I ask why the poor have no food, they call me a communist." You can't win. So you're stressed because you care this much. So today, what I'd like to do is talk about some of the things that you are in control of doing to help take conscious care of yourself. Have you noticed how much in your life is out of your control? So why contribute to your own stress by how you choose to interpret the world? So you'll see a lot of the themes that you'll see running through the 20 concepts I'm going to talk about have a lot to do with how you think and how you perceive and what your beliefs and attitudes are in the world. Perspective. Perspective. Stress resides in the eye of the beholder. I love the quote, "We can curse the rose bush because it has thorns." Or we can rejoice that the thorn bush has roses. It's the same bush, right? And you get to choose how you experience it and how you interpret it. Which do you choose? And when you choose one, how does that make you feel? When you choose to think of it as a rose bush. And when you choose to think of it as a thorn bush, how does that make you feel? You have the freedom to choose either way. Why not choose the one that helps you feel relaxed, happy, grateful? Or, stress is in the eye of the beholder. Think about, have you ever been stuck in an elevator? So imagine this, 4 people are stuck in an elevator. They're going to have 4 different reactions. Steve is relieved because he will now get to put off the performance evaluation meeting he was headed to. Lisa is feeling guilty and nervous because she was the service tech that just serviced this elevator. Jane is in the corner having a full-on panic attack because she's claustrophobic. And Jose is very happy because he just won a bet with a coworker that one of these elevators were going to break down in the next 3 months. So he's now going to make $200. 4 people exposed to the exact same situation, and yet 4 completely different feelings based on 4 completely different perceptions. Keep that in mind. And please also, I appreciate you bearing with me with the notes. I decided not to do a PowerPoint. I've got so many PowerPoints, and they are kind of fun to do. But as part of my own personal stress management program, why put myself through the anxiety of whether the PowerPoint is going to work or not? So I don't normally work this closely with notes. Choices. We have the power to choose how to perceive. Perhaps, I really think this is our most treasured freedom. We have the freedom to choose how to think. Just ask Viktor Frankl in concentration camps and his book about that. You know, I was visiting my folks in Denver once, and I think I was home from one or another college I was attending, and I experienced my dad being in a snippy, snotty mood. And I got triggered, and I was annoyed. And I went back to their bedroom, and I said to my mom, "Oh, he's being so mean today. How do you deal with him?" And my mother had about 25 years of recovery in AA at the time. And she said, "That's just it, Chris. I don't handle him." She said, "If he wants to ruin a perfectly beautiful Sunday afternoon being in a pissy mood, that's his choice. But I don't choose that for myself today." And I was like, "What? You can do that? Like, you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances or the person that you're with?" And it reminded me at the time, Melody Beatty's book, Codependent No More. She had a chapter on detaching, to detach with love. And that's what my mom was doing. She wasn't avoiding him. She wasn't punishing him by staying away or shunning him. She was non-judgmentally accepting that that's his choice, and today she was not choosing that for herself. A much more serious example, many years later I was working with a client. This gentleman was a paramedic with about 35 years in the field as a paramedic. And he said he had about 3 calls in his career that really was really traumatic for him to talk about. And he picked one, and he told me the story about being the first person on the scene at night, a long country, dark country road, where there had been apparently a pedestrian who had been hit by a car. And then I guess had been hit by a couple other cars. So that's as far as I'll go in describing that. But he carried with him so much guilt and woulda, coulda, shouldas, and if-onlys, because of course this person died in his arms. And it was probably a 2 or a 3 hour marathon therapy session. But by the end of that time, as we processed what he had gone through, what he recalled, his feelings, the events, the facts of what happened, by the end of that session, he was able to reframe his experience to actually feel honored, to get to be the person who was present at the time of this person's death. So what began as a trauma ended as a privilege, because he was with grace, I think, able to reframe and think about it differently. So we have choices. You're not quite the victim that you think you are. You have more power to think and believe and change your mind that you might not have realized. Or here's a similar example. Some of you, I'm going to read this Chinese parable. Have any of you heard of this one? Once upon a time, there was an old man in China who had 1 horse and 1 son. One day, the horse wandered away and was lost. Upon learning this, the neighbors went to the old man and told him they were sorry to hear about his bad luck. "How do you know it is bad luck?" he asked. Soon thereafter, the horse returned and brought back with him many wild horses. Upon learning this, the neighbors again went to the old man, this time congratulating him on his good luck. "How do you know it is good luck?" he asked. Having so many horses, the son took to riding, and it so happened that he was thrown from a horse and broke his leg. Once again, the neighbors went to the old man, this time expressing sorrow at his bad luck. "How do you know it is bad luck?" the farmer asked. Soon thereafter, a war broke out, and the old man's son, because of the injury, did not have to go to war. And so it goes, right? So this parable has helped me to be a little bit slower in jumping to the conclusion that, oh, this is bad, what just happened. This is going to be terrible, this is not going to work out. And this has helped me to take a step back and say, now wait a minute. Is this good luck or is this bad luck? Another tip. This seems kind of obvious. Never do anything that you know ahead of time you're going to feel guilty about or resentment about. I said that to a client once, and she said, I spend every day trying to decide between guilt and resentment. Right? You asked me for a favor, say you'd like me to babysit, and let's say in this particular case, I really don't want to. So, if I say no, what am I going to feel? Guilty. And if I say yes, what am I going to feel? Resentment. That's a tough one, isn't it? We could do a whole other workshop about how to make that decision. In fact, we can do a whole other workshop on half of these principles, by the way. But let me give you a tip. If you really have to pick between the two, honestly, I would suggest pick the one that will leave you feeling guilty. Because it is easier to recover from feeling guilty than it is to recover from resentment. You can find a friend who can do reality testing with you and help you say, no, it's okay that you said no, it's all right, you have a right to. It's just easier to recover from. But generally speaking, you don't want to do either. And again, when we get to assertiveness training, we can talk about how to gently say no. Have you guys heard about PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder. So this was a diagnosis that came out after the Vietnam War, and it was really intended to describe the experience of veterans coming back from battle, because the old terms battle fatigue and shell shock just don't cover it. And so in post-traumatic stress disorder, what that involves is experiencing some kind of traumatic event and being pretty much okay with it, being pretty functional. But after about 3 or 4 months, the person starts to experience anxiety symptoms. In fact, PTSD is classified in the DSM as an anxiety disorder. I have noticed a new epidemic among people who worry all the time. I call it PTSD, pre-traumatic stress disorder. Do any of you spend a lot of time and energy anticipating everything that could possibly go wrong? Work yourself up into some major anxiety and nothing has even happened yet? Now, why do you do this? You don't do this because you're broken. In fact, by the way, that's a point I want to make. You're not broken. None of you is broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just a good person doing the best you can with what you've got to survive. And probably when you came from a childhood that might have been challenged, you figured out that if you could anticipate and read between the lines and imagine every possible thing that might go wrong, you could maybe prevent it and then prevent mom and dad having a fight or dad drinking or whatever it was. So there's a lot of adaptive behaviors that you brilliantly figured out in childhood, in the war zone. But it turns out when you bring those coping mechanisms into adulthood, they're now maladaptive. And that's why we have something called adult psychotherapy. To help you unlearn those old patterns that were once adaptive, but now are not helping you that much. And I'm sure you've heard Mark Twain's quote, "I'm a very old man and have suffered a great many misfortunes, most of which never happened." How about the issue of control? I really think this needs to be my daily mantra. What am I in control of? What am I not in control of? What am I in control of? What am I not in control of? And what I'm in control of, brainstorm what can I do about this and do it. And what I'm not in control of, let it go. Can you control me? Can you control my feelings? Can you control whether I have a headache right now or not? No, I don't. It's okay. Just an example. Can you control whether I like you? Can I control whether you like me? Can I control how you perceive? Can I control your interpretations? Can I control your misinterpretations? So, doesn't this kind of beg the question, well, what then do I have control over? Any ideas?
My behavior. Your own behavior. Yeah.
Your own behavior, exactly. And do any of you, though, catch yourself trying to control things that you can't control? You know, honestly, I'm thinking about a time my mom had been in recovery for quite a while. And we had a photographer came over to the house to do a family portrait. And before the photographer arrived, my mom told us to just find something nice to wear. And we all did. And I think I was probably about 15 or 16. And I watched my mom not control this family portrait, which is kind of important, right? You want it to look good. But I was so impressed with her recovery that she let us all do our thing. And we did pretty well in terms of our clothing choices. But what a great example of her not trying to control every little thing. You wear this, you stand here, you do this. That's hard to do. Or when she held the 80th birthday party for my dad here in Green Valley. And we were at a venue and the caterers hadn't shown up. And it was supposed to start in about 15 minutes. And they weren't here and they weren't here. And I was thinking, what do? We got to call them. What happened? Maybe they forgot. Maybe they went to the wrong place. And my mom was just walking around going, it's okay. They'll get here when they get here. I tell you, recovering alcoholics, I love them. I used to go with her to her AA meetings here in town when they were open meetings and just loved to go. And just the laughter and the poignant stories and the wisdom of these people. Do we have any perfectionists in the room? How old are you and you're still a perfectionist? What is that about? You know, again, I think this is an artifact of perhaps old childhood attempts to be good enough, to be accepted, to be liked, to control the environment. So again, there's adaptive reasons to be a perfectionist. In fact, sometimes in a talk that I give, I talk about the difference between having drive and being driven. You know, you hear about, oh, she's really good at her job. She's really driven to succeed. And if you think about it, if you're being driven, who is in the driver's seat? It ain't you. So what's that about? If you're driven, pushed from behind, perhaps from a fear of inadequacy, right? And a need for approval. Now that doesn't mean that you can't be a person who has high standards, who enjoys the thrill and the sense of pride and accomplishment in setting high goals and achieving them. Do you see, that's a choice. You're choosing. The person who is driven is not really choosing. Now we can look at two people, A and B, both doing the same behavior. Both are showing up earlier than they need to. Both are volunteering for committees they don't have to. Exactly the same behavior. Which one is being driven and which one has drive? You don't know. You can't tell by the behavior. You have to know what's their motivation. Again, a client once said to me, "Yep, I'm playing my game. What's my motivation?" In order to decide if the behavior I'm going to do is healthy or not. So, perfectionism. Those of you who identify with, have you tried to not be a perfectionist anymore? I started by purposely dropping dirty clothes on the floor in my bedroom. I'd get undressed and I'd drop it and I'd go, "Oh!" and say, "No, leave it there." Well, now I've gotten so good at not being a perfectionist anymore. Really, in the great cosmic scheme of things, does it really matter? Today I was getting dressed to come today and I decided to wear my very comfortable shoes. And I thought, well, Chris, those aren't professional. Those aren't, you should wear a nice pair of black shoes to go with your black pants. And I just thought, honey, I often call myself honey. It's okay. In the great cosmic scheme of things, it doesn't matter whether you have a nice pair of flats or your very comfortable sneakers on. And in doing that, I made a step towards my own freedom and my independence and my power. Do any of you respect me less because I wore these brand new sneakers? A note about anger. I once asked my students, raise your hand if you grew up in a home where your parents modeled the expression of anger beautifully. One woman raised her hand, sheepishly. She said, my parents never ever fought. They never disagreed with each other at all. And I said, put your hand down. That is not necessarily modeling the appropriate expression of anger. Are any of you dealing with anger a lot these days? Hatred? Haven't we been having this conversation with our friends since at least 2016? How do I reconcile these feelings that I had no idea I was capable of having, right? I know. And by the way, give this some thought. Sometimes that anger is part of the stages of grieving. You know that anger is a stage in the process of grieving. And I've said before, I think a lot of adult psychotherapy is actually grief work. Regardless of the presenting problems. Just think about that. I have a process to help deal with your anger. You can reduce it, or it can become so great that you need to release it. And you can release anger physically. I've had more than a couple sessions with clients at a racquetball court where we would truly, consciously, physically dedicate today's session to your anger at your father or anger at your mother and get it out and get it out. And are you done? Yes. Nope, there's more. More and more. And then be physically exhausted. It's important to consciously dedicate this session to getting that anger out. And then when you're exhausted, you don't just go home. It's also important to say, now I'd like you to imagine all the spaces in your body that are now empty because you released that anger. And now I want you to fill that space with white light or the Holy Spirit or whatever belief system works for you. But do the imagery that includes healing so that you're not just having a cathartic release, but the intention to heal as a result of this work. Related to this, here's a concept. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. If you're living your life consciously at all, you're in some kind of emotional pain. And I know a lot of you are today. What's the difference between legitimate pain and what I call illegitimate suffering? Suffering is either attachment to your pain or aversion from it, say the Buddhists. Now, what does it mean to be attached to your pain? It means to allow it to become who you are. You identify with it. This is who I am. Or you ruminate about it. You talk about it all the time. You go into victim mode. Oh, poor me. Over and over and over again. Aversion to emotional pain is minimizing, denying. You know, as a therapist, every new client who would come in and share their story, my task is to recognize where this person is on either minimizing their pain or exaggerating it. Legitimate pain, illegitimate suffering. So sometimes I might have a client and I'd have to hear his story. I remember this one guy and saying, honey, that's child abuse. No, I wasn't abused as a child. You know, my dad just made me pick up the broken peanut butter glass and eat it, even though it was chunky peanut butter. He was just stern. He was a military man. But that's not child abuse. And I'm like, yes, it was. All the way up to this person, where who they are is, I'm a child of divorce. And that's who I am, and there's just nothing I can do about it. And I'm just going to be like this for the rest of my life. They've identified, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, or I'm a child of divorce, or I was traumatized, and this is who I am. And with that client, I need to say, yes, you were traumatized. Yes, you are a victim. And no, you're not a victim anymore. So, be thinking about the difference between legitimate pain and illegitimate suffering. Is that okay? Do you understand that? Okay. Finally, let it go. We have a magnet on our refrigerator that says, let go or be dragged. How many of you right now have an invisible gunny sack around your back that you're carrying of old wounds and old issues and old resentments and old anger? And how is that affecting your health at all? You know, have you ever heard somebody say, oh, I tried therapy for 3 years and it didn't help me at all? Well, there are lots of reasons for that. And one reason I think could be that what the therapist does is you come into my office every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. You tell me all about your hurts and your traumas and your child and how awful it is. Then you wrap up your gunny sack and you go home. And then you come back the next week, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and we ruminate about all of your trauma again. And then you put it around your back and you carry it home. This therapist has never helped you to understand that it's time to let it go. You cannot keep stockpiling more and more trauma. My God, you're old now. You have a lot. Pay attention to your thoughts and speech. Thoughts are chemicals. Say you're sitting around perfectly calm and relaxed. Your heart rate is down, and then you start thinking. Oh, that was your first mistake. You start thinking about worrying about something, or ruminating about how you were wronged earlier in the day. And pretty soon that heart rate has gone up 20 or 30 points, and you feel the upset in your stomach. What happened? You were fine. You had those negative thoughts, and then those thoughts cause chemicals, which then send messages in your autonomic nervous system, and now you're all upset. That then produces cortisol, which is a chemical in your body, right? Where does cortisol go? In your bloodstream. Where does your bloodstream go? Everywhere. And a little amount of cortisol, I'm told, is not really a problem, but chronic cortisol levels, will eventually impair your immune system. So you take two people who are fine today. Next week, one of you has a cold. Both of you were exposed to the exact same cold virus, but one got sick and the other didn't. What's the difference? Perhaps one person's immune system was more compromised. This is one of the reasons your doctor keeps saying you need to get your stress under control. Because with all that cortisol, you're aging faster than you need to be. And none of us can afford that. Next time you're with somebody who's complaining, do a little experiment. They're complaining about the service, and it cost too much, and the food was terrible. Just, read next door. And go inside as you're listening to this complaining and ask yourself, how am I feeling while I'm listening to all this negativity? How am I feeling? Okay. Now, listen to a person who's telling you this fabulous story about the great service that they got, or this wonderful thing that happened, or all of these things that they're grateful for. Go inside and ask yourself, how does this feel when I'm listening to this? Can you tell the difference? Which would you rather expose yourself to? And when you do the complaining, how do you feel inside? And when you get to express gratitude and joy, how does that feel in your body? Which do you choose? There's a whole lot of stressors that are coming at you that are out of your control, right? Listening to the news. Why in the world would you contribute to your own stress by how you spend your time complaining, being negative? Right? So make that choice. There's the story of a highway sign. There was this guy who was on a long road trip out in one of the western states, and there was a long single-lane country road, went on for miles. And the highway sign said, "You and your tedious thoughts for the next 200 miles." Or have you heard the prayer, "Lord, watch over me while I sleep, and in the morning, please God, get into my head before I do." Stress reduction tip, listen to music. Have some dedicated time to sit and listen to music. Lay down, or at least have it on in the background. Have a playlist of soothing music, or uplifting music, or upbeat tempo music. I've said it is physically impossible to be depressed while listening to Zydeco music. Do you know what Zydeco music is? It's a Louisiana Cajun Creole. I like Queen Ida. Yeah? Yeah. In fact, with my clients who are depressed, before we do Prozac, we do Queen Ida. Here's one. Breathe. You guys, some of you are so stressed. You haven't exhaled in 2 weeks? I don't know, something happened maybe, 2 weeks ago, and you went, and you inhaled, and you haven't exhaled. Your shoulders are up right below your earlobes. Your eyebrows are up at your hairline. And you're smiling this pasted-on smile saying, "I'm fine, I'm fine." And I want to go over and push your shoulders down and exhale. So whenever you hear breathe, the key is the exhale. Generally speaking, there should be a 1-to-1 ratio between your inhale and your exhale. Do you need to write that down? And the magic is in the exhale. When you're doing your breathing, say, let's do it right now if you would. Inhale to a count of whatever you can do, 3, 5. Hold it just for a second, but then exhale slightly longer than your inhale. Okay? So inhale right now. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Push out that exhale, because guess what happens? When your exhale is longer than your inhale, this sends a message in the autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, to calm down. So make your exhale slightly longer than your inhale. How many of you said, well, I know I've got to deal with it. I'll deal with it one of these days. Well, one day I was asking myself, what does that mean to deal with something? Have you ever thought about that? And so I came up with 6 steps that I think represent dealing with something. And this truly is a book. This is an all-day workshop. I'm going to cover it in about 2 sentences. Here are the 6 steps. Number 1, and you can use this for what happened, a minor fender bender, or I lost the love of my life. It's the same 6 steps. It's just that the fender bender might take you like 5 minutes to get through, and the much more serious thing you're dealing with might take weeks, months, years. But it's the same 6 steps. So the first step is simply, what happened? Acknowledge what happened. And don't take that for granted, because you could choose to be in denial about it, right? Or you could be minimizing it. Or a combination that I call minimile. So first step is what happened. The second step is, what am I feeling about it? And if you can, identify your feelings. I'm feeling this, 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 and this. And express your feelings. Express doesn't only mean talk. Express means to get that which is inside, outside. So you can express your feelings physically, like my client expressing his anger at the racquetball court. You can express your feelings dedicating a horseback ride. You can dedicate a pickleball game to getting your feelings out. As long as you consciously say, as you're doing your stretches and getting ready to start whatever the physical activity is, to say, it is my intention to release my feelings today during this physical activity. You can express your feelings through artistic expression, right? Writing. So lots of ways, but the point is, get those feelings out. Do you remember that poster from the 60s, when I repress my emotions, my stomach keeps score? The third step is, in the situation that happened that I'm dealing with, what am I responsible for? What's my responsibility? Just as important, what am I not responsible for? And if you'll excuse the expression, I call this shit sorting. This is my shit, that's your shit. I'll take 30% of this, but not 70%. Or I'm 100% responsible for this one. Or I'm not at all responsible for this. So it's like in the law of contributory negligence, figure out what part of this situation is yours and take responsibility for it. The next step is, what am I in control of now? What can I do about it now? It's already happened. I can't make it not happen. But what can I do to make it right? So brainstorm those ideas. And then the next step is to do that. Do what you're in control of doing, or make a plan to do it. And the last most important, the 6th step is, let it go. Let it go. Now how do you do that? Right? Well, ritual helps. You know, I was hiking with a friend once, and as we're walking, I was pissing and moaning about how pissed off I still was at Louise. And I finally heard myself, and I thought, you know what, I don't think I want this anger at Louise anymore. I think I'm done. It's only hurting me. So I told my hiking companion, I said, I'm going to pick up a rock. And I looked for a rock, just the right size, not too heavy, not too light. And I said, you're my witness. I'm putting all of my anger at Louise into this rock. And I'm going to throw this rock as far as I can into the woods. And I'm letting it go. I went home and I put that on my calendar. March 16th, let go of my anger at Louise. To really ritualize it. And then about a week later, I saw a red Volkswagen station wagon, and it reminded me of Louise. And I started to get mad, and I said, Kristen Lee, you let go of that. You dealt with it. You went through the 6 steps, and you chose to let go of that. Let it go. Do not get back into that. And so I was in my car, and I just turned up the radio and distracted myself. And I disallowed myself the enjoyment of picking up that anger again. Right? Not going to do it. I cannot keep stockpiling stuff, right? What was this business we were doing with that? Have you heard of tapping? Well, that's called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, tapping. And it's this weird new thing. It's under the field of energy medicine, and it's been called acupuncture without needles. So I'm sure you're familiar with at least a little bit with acupuncture. And the idea is that we have these meridians in the body, and rather than putting needles on these certain meridian points, you can actually tap on certain parts of your body, and that will help release this trauma. No kidding. I know, it sounds crazy. And I could tell you some amazing stories. But EFT tapping has been used very successfully for, I would say, 2 main things: anxiety and pain. Lots of other things, but those are the 2 big ones. So please look this up. Investigate. EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. That second one that we did, the thymus slump, both of those help you to calm down. Okay? Assertiveness. I once did a training on assertiveness at the minimum security prison in El Paso. And the El Paso Times reporter got wind of this and called me and wanted to do an interview. Why are you teaching these criminals how to be assertive? Isn't that kind of a problem already? And I said, that's just it. Too many people confuse assertiveness with what's called aggression. To be assertive is not to be aggressive. There are 3 ways you can handle a situation at the restaurant. You can be passive, you can be assertive, you can be aggressive. Passive means when you are respectful of the rights of others more than your own rights. Aggression, to be aggressive, is to be more respectful of your own rights to the detriment of other people's rights. And the middle ground, the Goldilocks just right, is to be assertive, which means to speak up in such a way that you are respectful of the other person's situation as much as you are of your own. Again, rather than a 4-hour assertiveness training class, that's the gist of that. Metta. Some of you, did you all get your little wallet size? Metta is a Pali word, means loving kindness. And this is a quick and dirty little prayer that you can use for yourself and for others. By the way, a little story about this. I taught a class for my students on mindful self-compassion to reduce test anxiety. Yeah. Because most test anxiety workshops at college campuses are about how to not have negative thoughts, right? Don't catastrophize. Stop doing that thinking. Stop the negative thinking. Relax, calm down. I'm getting ahead of myself. But mindful self-compassion is about simply noticing what you're feeling and then extending an attitude of self-love or loving kindness towards yourself. So rather than effort at don't have those hard thoughts, in fact, there's a technique in behavior therapy where you put a rubber band around your wrist, and when you have that negative thought, you snap it. It's called thought stoppage. And that's okay. This is completely different. This is like, I'm nervous, and I'm allowing it to just go away, and I'm going to love myself through it. So it's hard to be calm. It's hard to get your composure enough to think of these ideas, right, when you're that anxious. So I made this card for them to put on their desk while they're taking the test. And their teacher sees that there's no notes on it. And that's just, I call it a reminder card. So I made some, and you can have them if you'd like to keep it in your wallet to remind you. I would have them say this metta prayer for themselves, for the teacher. I even had them say it for the test, right? May the test accept things as they are. May the test be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. The whole idea, it's silly, but the idea was to take apart that adversarial feeling between the student and the test. Use ritual. Use ritual to physically represent your intentions to manage or release your emotions. I couldn't find it. I know I have it at home. It's called a God bag. Have any of you heard of that? Just get a brown lunch sack and fold down the tops, and then put next to it a bunch of small pieces of paper and a pen. And every time you've got something that is worrying you, stressing you out, write it down, fold it, and put it in the bag. And it symbolizes my intention to let go, let God. You can use a cookie jar. It doesn't have to be a God bag. It can just be a let go bag. But the point is, you ritualize your intention physically by putting it in there. And if you need to keep putting it in over and over again, you do that. Or light a candle. Light a candle to represent, I once did it to say, okay, I'm going to feel sorry for myself for about 20 minutes. And while the candle is lit, I'm going to indulge in it. And then I'm going to set the timer, and after 20 minutes, I'm going to blow out the candle, and that'll be it for my feeling sorry for myself. Which is different from self-compassion. Mindful self-compassion has been called the new self-esteem. Have you loved anybody in your life? Do you have a best friend? Do you have children, neighbors, people that you love, people that you support when they're going through a hard time? What do you say to them to comfort them, to give to them, to be kind and gentle with them, to reassure them? How do you treat them? Can you imagine extending all of those things towards yourself? That's what mindful self-compassion asks you to do. I put up the website self-compassion.org to learn more about this. Kristen Neff. Let's practice it right now. Can you think of anything you're stressed about? Just one? 4-step process. Just say this, repeat this after me in your head. This is a moment of anger, frustration, pain, whatever it is. This is a moment of stress. Stress is a part of life. May I be kind to myself? May I give myself the compassion I need? Finally, random acts of kindness. It's a great way to get yourself out of yourself. I told my students, do some random act of kindness the morning of the test. As a way to get a person wrapped up in themselves makes a very small package, right? It'll make you feel good. And then people say, oh, but that's just your ego feeling like, aren't I a good person? I just did that. I don't think so. I think we feel good after we're kind to people because we are in divine alignment in that behavior with the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are is love, right? So when I'm gazing at a star-filled night sky, or when I'm in awe looking at the ocean, or when I feel good because I've just been kind, I think all of those amazing feelings are because I'm home. That's the truth of who I am. And that's why it feels right to be kind to people. Can we do one last thing? I'm going to ask you, you've been so good. You know, I am a psychologist. I did not divide you into dyads and triads and make you talk to people. Would you be good sports and just try one simple thing for me? Just stand up where you are. We're going to end with this. Some of you can't see me. What you're going to do is take your right hand, and can you tap the inside of your left knee? Okay, and raise your hand. Now your left hand, tap the inside of your right knee, right? So I'm going to put the mic down. I'm going to talk loud. I'm going to demonstrate what we're doing. So you're going to basically march in place, right? And as you lift your left knee, you're going to tap it with your right hand. And lift your right knee, tap it with your left. And so you're just going to go. I know, this is a stretch. You basically got the idea?
Yes.
You can practice that at home. That's an energy medicine technique called the cross crawl. And it helps you wake up. Some of you were nodding off a little bit there. Anyway, you guys, please, if you've got any follow-up questions, we can spend a little bit of time with that now, and contact me if there's any questions you have, any resource I can point you to, anything you want me to tell you more about, just contact me and I'll be happy to get back with you. Can we do questions or are we done?
Sure. Has anybody got?
You can sit down.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you very much. I feel very lucky because I didn't hear anything about me, but I sure know a lot of friends that have the problems.
If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll bring you the mic. We need to have you talk on the mic, please.
You were talking about EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. Nick Ortner, O-R-T-N-E-R, is really big in that. And they have a brand new card deck out. It's a 52 card deck and a guidance booklet for tapping. And I have a friend who's been using it and swears by it. Every day she pulls a card and then taps on that subject.
Great idea. Yeah, this is amazing stuff, you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Regarding the tapping, they have a summit every February online, and they have a lot of speakers and I've listened to several of them that I found quite amazing.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so
Great.
you just have to.
Yeah, and there are a couple of places online where you can download a free EFT manual. One is 87 pages, the other is 66 pages. But if you just search for free EFT manual, you can get to that.
Cool. I've got one left. You want it?
Anybody else got a question?
Why you sit in the front row? Cool. Excellent.
Did you have a question? No, you were on the stress. Okay.
All right.
By the way, when I ordered these stress balls, there was another one called Don't Give Up. And I didn't hand that out because the brain does not register the word don't. So when you do affirmations, you would say, persevere. But don't say, don't give up. Because all your brain will hear is, give up, give up, give up. There was a billboard in New Mexico that said, don't forget the Toby Keith conference, or concert. And I thought, oh, they need a psychologist in their marketing department. It should say, remember the Toby Keith concert. Okay.
Well, it's so true in playing golf. Don't hit it in the water.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions?
A lot of good thoughts. Yes.
I just have a comment, it's not a question.
Use the mic, please.
It seems to me that for us, all of us, we want to stay informed, but there's a fine line between staying informed politically and functioning personally and professionally, right?
Right. I totally agree.
So I thank you what you've offered us, because I think all of us will be clear on what priorities we want to use for ourselves.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. Pay close attention to yourself. Yeah, and do tap while you watch the news.
I have
If
bruises
you want to
though.
keep informed, there's a Wednesday discussion group, and I think they're going to start doing some tapping too.
Right, good.
Remember what Escamante did? Vote in November.
Yes, for sure. Good. Wonderful. You did so well. Wonderful.
What a nice group. I hope you're right.